Hi everyone, and welcome back to National Graduate Week 2022. It's great to see so many of you on the presentation today. And today we're going to be learning about graduate schemes versus direct entry roles with the Virgin Media team, and hopefully getting you some tips and tricks and top advice for your applications as well. I'm Eloise from Career Map. I might have met you a couple of times already this week. Same as normal with the chat, definitely put all your questions in there as they come up. You can also put in there if you have any technical difficulties or anything, and I'll keep an eye on it as well for you. This session will be recorded, so you will get an email after the event if you registered, and that will have the link to the Virgin Media page on the National Graduate Week website. It will also have the link to this recording, and it will have the link to any application support or places you can go to find out more information. So yeah, that is it from me, and I'm really excited to be handing over to the Virgin Media team. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. My colleague Sinead and I are going to take you through a bit of an introduction this afternoon to Virgin Media O2. I guess it's not new anymore, but we merged as a company last summer, Virgin Media and O2, two household names, and we are here to talk to you today a little bit about our graduate scheme offering, talk to you about our personal experiences. Sinead is currently a graduate, and I finished as a graduate back in 2020, goodness me, in the middle of lockdown. So personal experiences, feel free to ask as many questions as you want in the chat. We'll go through it as we go along, but without further ado, we wanted to start a little bit by talking about us. I'm sure you're all very aware of Virgin Media and O2. Whether you're aware of us as a brand new combined business or not is not a problem, but you might have seen some of our recent adverts with the Highland Cow and Bubble, our little robot. But we joined forces, as it says, in the summer of last year after lots and lots of hard work. And the reason for that was really to supercharge connectivity in the United Kingdom. So for us, that's our 5G offering as the former O2 side of the business, and lightning fast fibre as Virgin Media side of the business. And that combined over 18,500 employees. Pardon me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I've been shouting at my new puppy all day. So yes, it's an exciting time for us. It's a lot of change. We're going through a massive period of transformation. So really an absolutely fantastic time to potentially join our business if we can energize you and excite you enough to want to apply to join us. So a little bit of a brief, what does this mean for our UK? Let me try again. What does this mean for the UK? So we're going through, as I said, a massive period of digital transformation, which means that it's a perfect time to join a business like telecommunications or broadband, because we're creating lots of new jobs, lots of new apprenticeships in really exciting areas, learning lots of new things, working with some really exciting up and coming technologies. A lot of what we do from both the broadband, fibre, and the network side of things will really boost the economy and are doing some very interesting things for businesses. So network, for example, with the launch of 5G way back when, now it's certainly not a new technology, is bringing some really exciting, to use that word again, opportunities for businesses to make more revenue, but to really transform the way that they are working. So, for example, I know that things changed for a lot of people during lockdown, and that was no different for us as a business, and that was no different for a lot of companies that would have never worked from home before, or that really had to transform how they did business on a day-to-day basis. And it was really important for us as a company that we were at the heart of that. So that is really our reason for being going forward, is to support the UK, help us to recover from what was a very difficult period and continues to be a difficult period, and transform the way connectivity enhances our lives at home. So hopefully that's a little bit of background, but moving on to some, I don't want to keep saying exciting, but I guess that is really kind of the tagline of today. I personally think, and Sinead and Hamza might challenge me on this if they think otherwise, that Virgin Media O2 really does understand what graduates and young people want from working at a business. So from perks and benefits, it matters to everyone. It's the part that enriches your day-to-day job, along with how much you're getting paid on a yearly basis, whether there's a bonus, those types of really important things. But perks and benefits really set us aside, I guess, from other businesses. So you have all the great stuff, your 25 days holiday. We offer the ability to buy and sell. So if you're going off on a lovely holiday with your partner, family, friends, and you need another 5 days, for example, that's something that you can buy on one of our online systems. But it's also additional things that really matter. So, for example, private medical insurance, dental care. You can get glasses. 2 years into a job at looking after the planning and the budgets, I suddenly decided that looking at small screens anymore just wasn't going to cut the mustard. At the time, you don't realize they're important, but then kind of further along, really do make a difference. But personal experience, and I'll let Hamza and Sinead join in if you want, that from a former O2 side of the business, we have the opportunity to go to the box at the O2, for example. So been very fortunate in the past to be able to go and see some of my favorite artists in the box, and that means hospitality, dare I say, open bar, to see people like Billie Eilish, Panic at the Disco. We've seen the boxing, things like that. Really, opportunities that make you feel very privileged to work for a company that give you something a little bit different. Former O2 also support and sponsor the England rugby team, as many of you may be aware. There's also the opportunity to go to Twickenham and watch live sport, which, if you're a rugby fan, I know is something of massive appeal. But something that is also equally important, which from a former O2 perspective we didn't have before. So a massive perk of us combining as a business is the volunteering days. So for example, today I'm taking this as a volunteering day. It means that you can go out into the community and support charities, businesses, causes that really matter to you. So that could be anything from helping your local dogs trust to walk the dogs, or going out and raising money for a charity that really is close to your heart. And the business is getting behind things like that with initiatives that really link together your personal life and your professional life and ensure that you can continue to prioritize the things that matter to you most. Something that we all learned was hard to balance through lockdown and COVID, for example. The business is very much acknowledged now that our home lives and our working lives are very much intertwined, and will continue perhaps to grow from that perspective. So any questions on perks, etc., do please pop them in the chat. I realise quite a few are coming in. I won't put my puppy on the chat because he's a bit of a nightmare, but also I've given him a Kong full of peanut butter, so my whole house now smells of peanut butter. But so a look into our offices. So we're exceptionally fortunate to have offices all over the country, from small offices in small places to I guess what you could call our headquarters in places like Reading, Slough, Hammersmith in London, Leeds. I won't try and list them all because I won't get them all. But a lot of them have recently gone through a revamp process. They are spaces that are designed for the ways that we now work. They're collaboration spaces. They're much more open. They're a lot more, dare I say, fun and engaging. We do not have to go into the office if we do not want to, and I should be careful when I say that because it's different for every team, and every team and line manager have their own agreement, but it's very much that you can go to the space that is most important, or allows you to get the most out of your day, I should say. And some of these offices have fantastic collaboration spaces that you can So, for example, huge open spaces with whiteboards all across the walls, where if you need to plan something out, if you do sprints, for example, or you just want to get together as a team for the first time in 2 years, for example, and there is an agreement, you can go as much as you want, and these spaces are available, as I said, all over for you to find the best location, so you don't have to go to the same office every time. So, for example, this week I've been in both Slough and Reading to see different colleagues. So, just seeing some of the comments that are coming in, yeah, it's a hybrid approach we're now moving towards, but cognizant to people's situations are unique, and it's based upon what you feel most comfortable with. Anything you wanted to jump in with, Sinead or Hamza? I'm cautious. I'm just powering through this.
Yeah, no, it's the Reading offices are really nice. So I definitely recommend going to them if you get the chance. Probably the best offices, especially on the Virgin Media side. Like really fun, lots of cool little spots and areas to work and chill in. And as you can see, you've got like pool tables and stuff. So yeah, no, if you're ever based in Reading, you're gonna have a good time.
That's just a shameless plug for the Reading office, which is actually about 5 minutes down the road for me, but I'm by myself, as I said, with the puppy today. So home it is. But in the wake of lockdown, the business really strove to understand what it is that its colleagues needed and wanted. And I think there was a statistic the other day, actually, about 18% people haven't come back to the office for whatever reason. They may from their health perspective might be a bit more vulnerable, or don't feel comfortable, or a commuting option that was viable before might no longer be viable. And it's important to say that these schemes are available all over the country for all of the different offices. There is sometimes an expectation to travel, dependent on your role, but that is unique to each person, and as said, an agreement with your line manager. But must emphasize that that is really acceptable to work from home if that is more appropriate for you, and the business is incredibly supportive of what is best for you as the employee. Realize I'm really powering through all this. So what we want to do now is talk a little bit more about our personal journeys, as I think potentially that's where you may get the most value. So myself, Sinead, and Hamza are going to talk a little bit about how we got onto the scheme, where we came from, and some tips perhaps about applying to the scheme, but also that kind of graduate scheme versus entry level questions. So I will pass over to you, Sinead, to do your bit.
Cheers, thanks, Bryony. So hi everyone, I'm Sinead. I'm a current grad, so I'm on the Tech and Innovation grad scheme. I started about this time last year. And yeah, I just want to give you guys an overview of what it's actually like on the scheme without the sort of rose tinted view of like, oh, back in the days when I was a grad and everything was lovely. This is how I'm finding it right now that I'm here. So how did I get here? So I started off by doing a degree at the University of Edinburgh. I studied a computer science degree. And I went into that right with no relevant experience, no idea what was going on. And it was this super steep learning curve, and I found it really difficult. And I got quite overwhelmed. By my final year, I could focus on cool things like design and logic. But because I struggled a bit with the programming aspect, I wasn't really comfortable applying for like a software engineering role, which seemed really standard for a computer science degree. I was kind of scared about the technical interview. I thought I needed loads of industry experience. I just wasn't really ready. And looking back now, I would have been absolutely fine. I would have smashed it. But my confidence just wasn't there at the time. So I was looking for something a little bit different. And then I found the Virgin Media Tech scheme. And what really appealed to me is that there was no CV. So I was like, yes, I can just apply right here, right now, today. There was no technical interview either. So, and they just asked for any STEM degree, which I had. So it felt really accessible and easy to apply to. So I went for it. 2 months later, then I got a call saying that I got a spot on the grad scheme, and I was so excited. I was so gassed for it, man. Really, really awesome moment. So I started out then in September last year, and I went to the Reading office. And context here now is the way the grad scheme works is the tech one at least, and most of them, they're 2 years long. And every 6 months you change role. So over the course of the 2 years, you do 4 6-month placements, or what we call them is rotations, because you sort of rotate around. And so for my first rotation, I got put in a software engineering role, right? And that's funny because, you know, I applied for this grad scheme thinking I couldn't possibly be a software engineer. But for the first rotation, they place you. It's the only one you don't choose. They place you in a role that they think you'd be really good at. So I was like, okay, clearly it's meant to be. I'm going to be a software engineer, whatever. And you know, I was doing some good work. I was moving a team away from working on a spreadsheet and making them use this cool new web app I was developing. But that's kind of not what I really was doing. A lot of what I was doing in that first placement was just learning how to like turn up to the office and how to write professional emails and how to set up meetings, because that was a really big thing for me, right? I remember the first meeting I set up. I'd like planned out everything I was going to say and I sent out the agenda. And the morning of, my manager suggested that I speak about something different, and I panicked. And I was so anxious about it all, I had to lie down on a yoga mat outside in the garden for half an hour and cry. Everything just about like having meetings and being in the office and being in that work environment was so much for me. So yeah, that was my first rotation. It was just learning to have a job for the first time. After that, for my second rotation, I decided to go into something that would force me to be on loads of video calls with senior people. Because that still really scared me, right? So I went into a strategy team where I was working as a sort of consultant. And I don't think on reflection now the role was right for me. I didn't really get it. It was a bit too business. And I just felt like I was making slides all day that were never going to get presented. It wasn't right for me. But by doing a role that wasn't actually my perfect role, you know, I got what I wanted, right? I got way more confident on calls. And yeah, I kind of really got what I wanted out of it, that little confidence boost and proving to myself that I can do something that's, you know, not my comfort spot. So for my third rotation then, which is where I am now, I really wanted to go back into something a little bit more techy. I was like, no, I like that tech space that I had for my first rotation. I want to go back there. And I heard rumors of this team that used to be part of O2, was now part of Virgin Media O2. And they were just a bunch of developers, techie people that would work on anything they thought was like cool or new or innovative and exciting. And I was like, right, I wanna be with these people. So what I did is I just turned up to all of their events. I just replied to all of their comms until they noticed me. Got on a call with them and asked if they would take me on. And they were like, we don't usually take grads on, but we will. We'll give you a 6-month placement. And that's been really awesome. You know, I love this team. It's so great. There's so much space to just learn and grow and do my own thing and explore my own ideas. And I really love it. So that's where I am now. Totally want to stay here. But I guess in 5 months' time, I might have to do my fourth rotation. And I actually don't know what I want to do for my fourth, partly because I love where I am now so much. But I'm definitely keeping my eyes and ears open because it's my final chance to try something new. And I think I'll regret not going for it. So I'm gonna try and find some really cool opportunity to end on. So after that, then I would have done my 4 rotations. I would have done my 2 years on the grad scheme, and it would be time for me to find my landing role. So a landing role is the sort of permanent role you get at the end of the grad scheme. Like you land there, you're a full-time, proper permanent employee now. What a lot of people do for that role is they go back to one of the teams they had a placement or a rotation with and sort of ask the manager, have you got any roles going? Do you want to take me on permanently? And that's the typical thing to do, right? You go back to your favorite. I think that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to come back to the team that I'm in now. That's my long-term game plan here. But a lot of people also just apply for a job somewhere else in the business because you get loads of really cool experiences as a grad. You get to work in 4 different teams in a really short space of time. That makes you an awesome candidate for pretty much any role within the company. So the world is really yours when you get to the end of that 4th rotation. So I think what I've learned over the last, year, hopefully 2 years by the end of it, it's been really fun actually finding out what I want to do and what roles I'm good at, what roles are really not for me, and where I sort of belong, right? It's been a great time for me. But it might not be right for everyone, right? So let's take a look at that for a moment. But I reckon, okay, you should really apply for a grad scheme, specifically a Virgin Media one or a Virgin Media 02 one, if you actually want something that's a little bit more relaxed. So I'm just talking from personal experience here, but I worked too hard at uni. I really burnt myself out and I ran myself into the ground. And I think if I went for a grad scheme that was going to need me working late into the night, that was going to have loads of hard deadlines, that was really competitive, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have burnt out so quickly. But here I feel like there's not too much work. It's a really nice, nourishing environment. It's super chill, it's good vibes, the people are really kind and supportive, and that's what I needed, you know. So if you feel like that's what you need at this point in your life or for the start of your career, go for it. Like, this is exactly what it's going to be for you. I'd also recommend the grad scheme if you're quite driven. So I'd say it's very easy if you could fall into a position where you end up in a lot of roles that you don't really want to do, they're not right for you. Maybe you're not putting yourself out there and asking for the right work and you just get work that you don't enjoy. But if you're really driven, you're able to go out there and speak to different people and work out where you want to be working and find the work that you want. It's going to be awesome for you. You can pretty much work on anything. So if you're pretty driven and you know you can get out there, I'd really recommend it. And the final thing is, I think this is actually really good for you if you're undecided. So if you're like me and you're like, oh, maybe I want to work in this field, but I'm not really sure, grad scheme, it's perfect for it, right? You can totally try some roles, and if you're really bad at it, nothing terrible happens. You don't get fired. No one really cares if you're bad. That's part of the process, right? So if you're not sure what you're good at, you're not sure what you want to do, absolutely go for it, because you've got that space and freedom to experiment a little bit. What I would say though, in terms of the cons, is don't apply if you really don't like change. So every 6 months, you're going to have to change role, right? As soon as you get comfortable in your role, it's all going to change and you're going to start all over again. And if you're going to find that really exhausting and really difficult and really stressful, maybe this is not the right thing, right? Because it's going to happen all the time. Things are going to change. So don't go for it if that's like your worst case scenario. Second thing I'd say is maybe it's not right for you if you know exactly what you want to do. So if you've got it in your head that you want to do this one specific role and that's all you're interested in and you don't want to do anything else, just don't do the grad scheme, right? Because you're going to be forced to do loads of different roles. And if that's really going to frustrate you, maybe not the right thing. And finally, I'd say maybe don't go for it if you're totally done with learning. If you're maybe in your last year of uni now and you're like, no more learning, I am done with this, I've hit my max learning capacity. Because grad scheme is just kind of uni part 2, right? It's very similar in the sense that it's just learning all day, every day, but you haven't got a structure. There's no lectures, there's no exams. You have to do it yourself. So you have to be really driven to actually go out there and ask for help and self-teach and self-learn, or it's just not going to work out for you. But you know, if you're able to do that, you want to try new things, and you think a pretty chill vibe would work well for you, I'd say absolutely go for it, right? It will be perfect for you. So guys, if you have any questions on what I said, please pop it in the chat if you haven't already. As Bryony speaks, I'll try and go through and answer them all for you. Thank you so much. I'll hand back over to you then, Bryony.
Super. Thank you very much for your honesty. And it's very interesting to hear your perspective, Sinead, because it was very different to mine. So I joined on what was the former O2 graduate scheme, which was a lot less structured. So I never did rotations, although I don't know if it was ever supposed to happen, but I certainly didn't rotate. So it's very interesting to hear how that's benefited you from what you wanted. So I joined on similarly a technology graduate scheme back in 2018. I'd come from studying French and German at university, so I wasn't technical. I had an interest in technology. I didn't know anything about telecoms, nothing about the network. O2 for me at the time was an opportunity to get into a field that I would have never been able to enter without the structure, although I've just said there was no structure, of a graduate scheme, because at the time I didn't have the knowledge yet, and so certainly I'd had a base set of transferable skills from university that I was ready to apply to a job, but I would never, and I can say this confidently now, knowing many years later, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without the graduate scheme. So a little bit about me then, as I try and ignore my dog throwing a tantrum. I joined in the technology strategy team. What did that mean? Trying to steer the business in the best direction to continue making money, to continue investment, to continue understanding the new technologies that were coming down the line. So some pictures, you may wonder what they are on the screen. So I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing of a man named David Owens, who I fondly call Mr. 5G. So he's not here, so I don't need to praise him too much, but he is a very intelligent man who drove the 5G trials at what was O2 at the time. What does that mean? That meant us understanding as a business how to help other businesses utilize and exploit 5G. So, for example, the bottom right corner, you can see what was a connected autonomous vehicle, so essentially a driverless car. Potentially a future technology still to be decided. Things like augmented reality. I was very fortunate to, you can see the Microsoft HoloLens in the bottom right corner, turning that into a product that we could sell and trial with customers to help their field engineers out in desperately trying to ignore my dog, desperately out in the field, trying to connect them to experts remotely, and they could help them overlay images over some old pipework, for example, and then that would help train up engineers, etc., to be able to gain skills on the job. Other things that this dog is going ballistic. I did a lot of 5G in the beginning, is what I'm trying to say. It was fantastic, and it springboarded me into a career that I would have never imagined. So although I didn't rotate, I was fortunate to get opportunities doing things here or there with different people in different teams, and working alongside my colleague David, as I said, had the opportunity to really kind of have my finger in every pie, as it were, to do with the network. From there, I went on, when I'd graduated in 2020, to work. It's really hard. It's very grumpy. To work in what was technology partnerships. So that was taking everything that I had learned doing with the technology and talking about the technology, to going out and speaking to universities, to running trials with them to understand the technologies of the future. So, for example, we worked with the University of Glasgow during the pandemic, using connected autonomous vehicles to deliver COVID tests to people in more vulnerable situations who might not be able to source them, for example. I did a lot of really fantastic, fun, engaging things in my 2 years as a graduate, and then in the subsequent year or so after that, try to find my feet in the wake of, I guess, 5G becoming more stable, more available. And then I was fortunate enough, the end of last year, to get an opportunity to join our integration team. So a challenging time, bringing two massive businesses together, basically streamlining everything from, you can imagine, each company has its processes, has its software platforms, trying to funnel that into one for each. So it's an exceptionally exciting time to be part of this team, and we're getting together to really mobilize and make this a single business. So for me, a graduate scheme was perfect because I had the opportunity to dabble. I had the opportunity to work with lots of different people, as Sinead said, in a very nourishing environment where you could make mistakes, you could ask every question you wanted, and the expectations were still that you were driven, you were enthusiastic, you would work the hours, but again, as Sinead said, that you were not expected to be working, 6 till 6, or you were in a very controlled environment to be able to grow and be exposed to as many different people as possible, to be exposed to senior leadership, even the exec, the former CEO. I ran goodness me, dog. a workshop on automation with the former board of O2, for example, about a month into my graduate program, and I would have never had the opportunity to do that, I think, if I'd gone in at an entry-level job elsewhere. I don't know, because that wasn't my path, but I had a fantastic time as a graduate, and I had the opportunity to do a lot of things that I've found out that I loved. I dabbled in finance, which I never thought I would enjoy, and I now do a much more finance-based role. If I'd told my parents I was going to do that 4 years ago, I think they would have laughed me out the door, because numbers are not my strong suit, but now they're my everyday. So if I'd not had the platform to try, to do secondments, to talk to lots of different people, to try things out, I would have never discovered something that I would say is potentially the rest of my career. One other thing that's worth mentioning, as part of the graduate scheme, you also make, and it probably sounds exceptionally cheesy, some really fantastic friends. So the picture on my screen is the 2018 graduate technology or just operations cohort that went to the Lake District. We went canyoning, kayaking, hiking. We camped in the pouring rain in the Lake District, which wasn't my cup of tea, but it was a fantastic week that taught us about leadership and also followership. I then went on to my first home away from living with my parents was with one of the other graduates. So I made friends, and I regret saying it, but friends for life. And you have these people that are learning at the same time as you, going through the same experiences, and you're in it together, is what I'm trying to say. So my journey then took me on to managing graduates, managing apprentices, and I also gained an enormous amount from that, because I understood their journey, I understood what they were trying to get out of it. So for me, the graduate scheme has been enormously rewarding and was right for me. It might not be right for you, but for me, it was my way into technology, and a career that has, I mean, a very short career so far since I graduated, but has been incredibly rewarding. Every day has been different, and I've had the opportunity to do some really, really cool stuff. So again, similar as Sinead said, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them honestly. I think that's me. I'll pass over to you, Hamza.
Cool. So hello everyone. So I'm another ex-grad. So I finished the scheme actually in March 2022. I joined in September 2020. So I'll give you a quick run through of my of my life after uni. So I did a degree in English literature, which is a very strange degree to do considering I then joined the commercial product and marketing graduate scheme. During that time, I thought I realized I didn't want to actually become an English teacher like most English literature students. So I tried to get some work experience in marketing. I guess to be specific, if it's helpful for you guys, I did an internship at a very tiny heart charity. And what else did I do? I did some work with the University Society. And then I did this I was very lucky to be fair, to get into this 3-day program at Google's offices about Google Ads. So that was pretty much the majority of what was on my CV. So yeah, I did that. And then actually I wanted to take a bit of a year out after uni. I didn't want to apply for jobs straight away. So I got a job as essentially an English teaching assistant at a local secondary school. I ended up just being an English teacher in all fairness anyway. And it was during that time where I started applying for jobs. I found out about the Virgin Media graduate schemes. I was not lucky enough to join a call like this where I could actually speak to and ask questions to grads. I literally read through the website and stuff, and I just applied. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and I'm glad it worked out. And then after that, don't know why it says English teacher twice, but I guess after that I joined in September 2020, and then I finished my scheme in March 2022. With regards to what I actually, the rotations I actually did, the first one I did was the commercial in-life rotation. So that was in the commercial department. Essentially, my job was running campaigns in order to get equipment to customers, existing customers. So my entire role was based off of looking after our existing customer base. did lots of like data analysis stuff, learned to use sort of Excel, didn't even know how to use Excel before. How pathetic is that? But yeah, lots of data analysis stuff, using like dashboards and data to come up with like recommendations in order to like increase the, I guess, commercial output and also the happiness of our existing customers. Learned plenty about like the commercial sort of side of the business, and also especially like analytical stuff and working with data. I think those were probably the two key things I took from that rotation. After that, I did my second rotation, which is completely different. It's in the digital squad, one of the digital teams, where I did UX UI design. Essentially, that stands for user experience and user interface design. So it's all about finding problems in our website and designing solutions based on that data in order to make customers happier, reduce friction, just make things easier for customers, and that all should hopefully lead to more sales, or essentially customers getting where they need to go. So definitely learned probably the most skills for me that in that placement. Learned more about data, learned how to design things visually, various like color theories and stuff, anything really to do with design. I learned how to conduct user research, create prototypes, map out entire customer journeys. I love the hell out of it, and that's actually what I'm doing now full time. Then my third rotation was in the brand team. So I guess like many of you who are interested in marketing knows what an account manager is. It's essentially looking after like various clients and making sure that like you've got designers, art workers, copywriters to actually create the thing that the client wants, and just making sure everyone's aligned. So it's like very stakeholder heavy, and I think that's the one key thing that I took from this placement. So it was, instead of having external clients and being in an agency, my clients were basically just various people across the business that needed creative work done, whether that be like posters, leaflets, health and safety books of all things, and even like entire like campaigns that you'd probably see on billboards and on the internet and stuff. So yeah, I learned a lot about stakeholder management and just organization in terms of project management. And I would also say I got really good knowledge about our actual brand guidelines and how we communicate both internally and externally. Like if you were to show me something now, I could tell you if it's on brand or not, or whether it would actually pass the bar in any of our brand teams, because every single piece of important communications within the business, both for internal stuff and external stuff, goes through the brand team. We have to sign everything off. And then it's a 4-placement scheme. I was a bit naughty. I skipped my 4th placement. I applied directly for a job in the same team that I was in for my 2nd placement, so in digital UX and UI design. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment in terms of current stuff that I've actually done as a designer. I look after various of our upper funnel, various versions of our upper funnel broadband pages. I've worked on like a couple of quite big projects, like our entire refer a friend journey, and I'm currently working on our Black Friday stuff, which of course Black Friday is just around the corner, so we've been working super hard on that stuff. During the graduate scheme, I got up to quite a bit. I did loads of like events like this. This is actually the first like graduate thing I've done in quite a long time. When I was actually a graduate, I did loads of these like future careers graduate type events, where I'd speak or I do host Q&As and stuff like that. So it's nice to be back doing a little bit of that. I'm also part of the Enrich network, and that's our ethnic diversity network. And I'm one of the like lead steering group members for that. Essentially, we're all about raising awareness and doing a bit of activism and celebrating the various sort of cultures, religions and ethnic groups within the UK, and just trying to have open, honest and healthy conversations about that sort of stuff, because we, as a business, we want to be diverse and we want people's voices to be heard. So we've got various different networks set up for those reasons, and I'm part of the Enrich one. Right now we're doing some like stuff on Black History Month, of course, Black History Month. So we've actually had a talk internally that happened about a couple of hours ago by the daughter of Nelson Mandela. So yeah, the entire team organized that, which was really cool to see, and they actually hosted that at the O2, which is really cool. And And then finally, something I've done outside the graduate scheme, I did a product development program called Idea Lab. Essentially, we're given a budget, we're put in like a random team within the digital department, and we're basically told to solve any problem you want, basically come up with a website or an app solving a problem that you care about. Hire a designer with your budget, and work through gathering research, talking to customers, interviewing them, coming up with a prototype for a solution, testing it with people to make sure that they like it and to make changes based on their feedback. And then finally, we got to present our prototype and our entire journey to some super senior stakeholders a couple of weeks ago. So I just finished up with that. We actually did a food wastage app in the end. So it's nice because, it's just a great example as the people before me said, like it's just a great, like the entire scheme, but also the company as a whole is all about like trying to just trying to develop you and make you like better, in your personal life, your professional life. So definitely recommend that if you ever move into one of the digital teams. I think that's me.
Super, thanks Hamza. We've got lots of questions coming in. I've just got a few more slides more on the logistical stuff, and then we will endeavour to answer as many questions as we can if we haven't answered them sufficiently enough yet. So a little bit about our future careers programs, and I should caveat this with to check out the website for the latest information. But we have schemes that span all different areas of the business, and will open up doors to access all different parts of business and the different departments and the different teams, going across sales, finance, digital, commercial. The technology one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sinead, Hamza, that is it just internships, or we also offer internships for those?
So for the ones with little stars, it means we offer graduate schemes and internships.
Super. I didn't want to get it wrong. But obviously they're very broad, and the fantastic thing about that means that there is many different things within the world of finance, and many different things within the world of business, for example. So you're going in under quite a generic scheme that gives you access to as many different doors to different teams as possible, and your rotations would be within that sphere, but that doesn't necessarily mean that come the end of your journey that you couldn't go and do something totally different. For example, I have friends / former graduates that moved from technology or IT all the way over to business, for example, or went from IT to HR. So it's the foot in the door to get a taster of everything that's going on. So I know that I'm very pro graduate scheme, as I'm sure you can tell from the way I'm speaking, but it really is a great opportunity to go in under one of these schemes and find where you fit in. So you would apply for one of those and would then fit within rotations under line managers that bid for your placement within one of those areas. So I'm a little bit less familiar with this because the application process was a little bit different way back when I applied, and Sinead and Hamza will support me in this, but it begins as all the other graduate schemes do. You submit your application form. It is just the application form. A lot of the ones that I did when I was at university, you had to submit your CV and then another cover letter. For us, it really is just fill out the application form, and that comes with some tests. I remember back in 2018 when I was applying, the O2 test at the time was the only one where I felt really confident I understood what I was doing. Obviously that paid dividends, but it is it tests your kind of skills, reading, writing, analytical skills, those kinds of things. I can't remember it exactly off the top of my head. Do either of you two remember which the names of them? That'd be helpful.
Yeah, it's like is this for the situational judgment
test?
They're essentially like competency-based questions where like they'll ask you in various sort of like different scenarios, or just ask you about the sort of person you are. and that's kind of like a way to screen you. And then you've got obviously the telephone or video interview. I'm not too certain about the telephone interview. I never had that. I actually just had the application form, or with me, yeah, it was the application form where I just basically copied and pasted all my CV points in after, for it. Then I had to do like a short like essay. I'm not sure if they did that before. It was literally just a paragraph. And then my video interview was kind of the situational judge. Actually, I can't quite remember. I might have done a situational judgment test. I'm going to skip that bit. But then I had a video interview, and that was like somebody came up on the screen, and it was just a recorded video of someone asking a question. And then it's like, what would you do in this situation? And then you'd have like 90 seconds or something to answer. Candidate coaching call. Can't speak about that. Didn't have that. It was just the assessment center, and then the offer after that. I can speak about the assessment center in a bit after Sinead and Bryony have spoken, I guess.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Sinead, to your? I think you may have gone through this a little more recently, perhaps.
Yeah, so I got all the stages in this order except for the coaching call, which sounds really good. I wish I had that. But yeah, situational judgment test. It's like a made-up scenario. What would you do? Video interview exactly as you guys got. And yeah, Hamza, if you explain the assessment center, because that's the one that I was like, oh my god, what's it gonna be? It's gonna be super scary. So we can put people's minds at ease.
Yeah, I can chat about the assessment center. So I was like, it was literally just before, like, I had my assessment center in like November 2019 actually, or was it December, one of the two. And actually what happened was it was the last sort of few months before COVID hit. So we were like the last in-person assessment center. So I came obviously to the Virgin Media offices because of course at that time we hadn't merged yet. It was just Virgin Media. And we were split into groups essentially. So it was split over 2 days. So one group did everything on one day, and the other group did everything on the other day, just because of the amount of people you were and you're with. And then on the day, you're split into like kind of mini groups, I think. And one of the kind of tasks is a teamwork task where they put you in a room and they give you a problem to solve. And what they're assessing is like your teamwork skills, your leadership skills, how you like interact with people, how you go about working with people to solve a problem. I had a normal kind of one-to-one interview with, I guess, a recruitment manager. And then I also had to do a presentation of which I was given like, I think an hour or something to prep for. They give you like various materials. You come up with something based on those materials after taking a look at them, and then you go back into a little room with a couple of people who essentially watch you do your little presentation, and then they'll ask you some questions about it afterwards. That's how it was for me. I don't know if they've changed it since then, but that's what I remember it being.
I mean, it was similar for me back in 2018, the previous year. So I think it's a similar structure going on from that. But
yeah,
my only word of advice for the assessment center is I built it up in my head to be this big, scary thing. And I was so nervous in the morning that I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I didn't necessarily think that for me, an assessment center was the best way to show what I was made of. But actually, by the end of the day, I was really glad I'd done it. And at the time, the early careers person said to me, the best thing you can do at an assessment center is just be yourself.
Yeah.
As cheesy as it sounds, be yourself, be switched on, ask questions. As long as you show that you are keen to learn, you're keen to learn about the business, our values, what we do and why we're doing it for our customers, that type of thing will stand you in good stead. But the most important thing is just be yourself. Talk about the things that interest you, your strengths. I've seen a question that's to do with about making yourself stand out, your application stand out. For the assessment center, for me, it was just talking more, because I had an assessment piece, which was a presentation than an interview. And in the interview, my interviewer was more interested in learning about me and the things that I'd done at university and my extracurricular activities, for example, than specifically the job that I was applying for. It was very much they want to get to know you as a person behind the professional, I guess, as it were. And the day itself, again, perhaps has changed a little bit since I did it, but the structure I suspect remains the same. They're looking for the same things. They want to understand if you fit with us as a business, whether you share our values, whether you want to work towards the same, transformational, digital, bold future that we are working towards. I hope that helps. Anything you wanted to add, Sinead?
No, I was just writing a reply to Miles there about what sort of questions they ask. So I'll just tell you the reply. From what I remember, it's very much, can you think of a time you've done this? How would you deal with this situation? It's not super nitty gritty. Like, tell us everything we do as a business. It's like, what sort of role would you like? What inspires you? So yeah, it's pretty chill. Is that what you guys found as well in terms of questions?
Yeah, pretty much. Just have them already kind of, the way I did it was you can find a lot of these types of questions online anyway, and you can prepare answers and just use the STAR method, if you guys have heard of it, the situation, task, action, and result kind of framework to answer them. I guess I'd second what Bryony said about the assessment center. Like, it sounds like really generic advice, but like, be yourself it's very, very important. Like, in my opinion, especially, and everyone's opinion, I guess, it's very like, you don't want to, like, they'll see you come across as fake if you kind of try and put an act on. It's very obvious. It was very obvious on the day when I did it, if I'm honest, the people who are being really fake and trying to put an act on, and they think it looks good. I think everyone can tell it looks really bad, and they're not going to get the job at the end. So be yourself, be polite, be yourself, like, and smile all the time and stuff. I mean, if you're not someone that smiles much, I would say the only thing to do is probably smile a bit more on the day and just be a bit more cheerful.
I was very tired of smiling by the end of the day. But to your point, Hamza, the important thing is you're not necessarily applying for a specific job, because you don't know which job that you're going to do, which rotations, or what job you're going to have at the end of it. You're applying for a scheme. So they don't care if you're going to be the best network engineer or you're going to be the best coder or programmer. They care about you as a person and how you fit with the business. The rest of that will come later. The rest of it, whether you have the right skills to do a specific job, comes much later. Right now, you're just trying to sell yourself as someone that fits within our business and with our values and our mission.
Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah, like, take feedback on board, try and respond to it. Be willing and open to learn, and show that in the assessment center. And I would definitely say, like, I think my number one piece of advice as well, or number one after the number two piece of advice I would say is, I think when people go into the assessment centers, they think it's like this kind of Shark Tank situation where everybody's actually gunning for each other. You will see some people kind of like try and, in an underhand way, like, undermine other people because they think that, if I show I'm better than this person, then I'm more likely to get the job. That's not the case at all. The best piece of advice I can give is treat everyone as if, obviously well, and as don't be manipulative, obviously, but treat people as if like they're actually on your team. Like, if you're actually on a team in your day job working with these people, how would you treat them? How would you work with them? Like, that's how you should approach it. Don't put an act on. Like, engage in the role play and pretend like it is real life. That's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because that's not our culture, is it? Our culture at Virgin Media O2 is very much supportive. It's how we can work together as a team to get what we need to be done. I hear of some of my other friends have worked for companies where it's incredibly corporate, it's incredibly demanding, it's incredibly cutthroat. It's almost as if you work for the same company but you're at each other.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's very different.
To quote Black Panther, as a Black Panther, we don't do that here,
So, we've only got 6 minutes for questions. So I don't know, Eloise, were you going to help us make sure we've answered everything? Because I want to make sure that we've given as much context as we can.
Yes, and thank you so much for all of that information. And I think you have answered pretty much. I was trying to look for questions that haven't been answered, but you guys have been doing such a fantastic job in the chat. But I think most people, if not all people, have had their questions answered. But if I am wrong, please type your question again in the chat so it goes to the top. And there were just some at the bottom. Oh, someone asking about the, oh no, you answered that, about the volunteering days. Yeah, dog-friendly officers, yeah, the merger. Maybe you could say a little bit about, because you just briefly touched on mission and values. Like, is that something that you feel is like now really prominent in the company? Like, is that something you connect to as even a junior or like someone who's just entering the business?
I think I'm happy to start, guys, and then if you want to jump in. So I think because we've merged as a business and we're trying to come together as one combined business with the same vision, it is more important than ever that everyone is behind the same values and our mission statement. That's why perhaps we've laboured that, because it's such a poignant thing for our business at the moment as we're trying to find our feet as this combined merged business, that we are trying to understand how we're getting from A to B together under what, you know. So I came from former O2, we had a different set of values, we'd had a different mission statement. My colleagues from former Virgin Media also had a different set of values and a different mission statement. We're now trying to do that together, so it's incredibly important, and that's why I keep labouring that point, that it is all about that at this stage of our digital transformation journey. And as we integrate and transform as one business, it's more important than ever. So if you are interested in applying for Virgin Media O2, I would certainly hint that that is quite an important thing to take consideration of.
I would also add, I guess, in terms of like values, culture, and the way we work. I think like outside looking in, you see VMO2, and you're probably expecting at the moment that like Virgin Media and O2 people are just like all the time, like everything's integrated, but like completely like, you know, synced and meshed together. And, you know, it's just a nice 50-50 split on Virgin Media and O2 side. I guess it's important to note that we're very early still in our stages of the merger. And what you'll experience in the graduate scheme are one of three things. You'll either like depending on your rotation, of course. Like in one rotation, it might be entirely Virgin Media. In another rotation, you might move to another sort of part of the business, and it's entirely the O2 side. And then another part of the business, you might just find like, oh, there is like some integration here in this team where Virgin Media and Virgin Media and XO2 people are working together in one team and trying to build something together. So yeah, there is a variety of sort of ways the teams are structured in that way, but it's all great, to be honest. You learn lots from the different parts of the business because each originally operated a bit differently. So it's like at times working for two businesses, which is actually nice in terms of the amount of experience you can get.
Yeah, and I can see the values have just gone into the chat. So definitely, if you're thinking about making an application, that is something to make a note of now and put into your application as well. I think that's really helpful. And it sounds like quite an exciting time to maybe join the business. This has kind of got all these different elements to it and changing and evolving. All right, so just in our last 2 minutes, I wonder maybe we could just go through each of you, and if you could give some final, like one sentence of your final words of wisdom to our attendees.
Goodness me, on the spot. Be authentic and leave it at that. Be authentic.
Guess I'll go next. If you reach the assessment center, or if you're looking into assessment center stuff, one tool that I'd recommend that I used for graduate schemes, it's called Assessment Day. It's £40 for a year subscription, and they've got loads of like well, not just assessment center stuff. They have a few assessment center stuff and a lot of situational judgment test type, you know, mock questions that you can work through and you know, I guess do, because there is, I guess, a little bit of an art to sort of answering that stuff. So yeah, good. Not to plug it, I don't get a commission, but assessment center, assessment day is a great tool to use.
I guess my final word of advice is, don't be too worried about giving the right answer to any questions you got right. My sort of example is in my assessment center, I went on a really long tangent about vacuum cleaners as an answer to one of the questions. It was not the right answer, but my feedback was awesome, and I got the job. So you know, I gave the wrong answer and they loved it. So don't stress it. Just bring good vibes. It'll work for you, I promise.
I love that. And I think that links back to being authentic again. It's that kind of like just bringing your full self into the process. Well, thank you so much. What a great session, and like so many insights. And as always, this will be recorded. So come back to this recording if you need to. If you're making your application, definitely check back those values and the things that you need to get in.